D. A Delta. I seem to still be the wicked, horrible wizard, even though I haven't lifted a finger in over 10 years. Anyhow, that's another conversation, maybe for another time. I'm going to start the introduction to the Nephilim. But first I want to go into something that predates all the Bible. And yes, there is information that predates the Bible. Now, most of this can be taken with a bit of scrutiny. But I'll tell you from what I picked up. And yes, the sources of the information can't be examined, unfortunately. I wish they could be. There's just no way for me to share that information. It is written in the Bible that God found iniquity in Lucifer. Actually, what happened was Lucifer foresaw himself of being a god himself. And he wanted to be in charge of the earth. He wanted to be over the earth. God pretty much told him no, that he would take care of it himself as his creation. And it is his responsibility. But Lucifer pronounced that he would be more effective at doing this. And that one day he will ascend to the throne of God and even be higher than he. Now, time is relative to where they exist, but there was a long, drawn-out discussion. I'm going to say 30 minutes. I don't know the length, but it was long and drawn out. Pretty much like Parliament or in Washington Congress. They just love to talk. But anyhow, Lucifer was able to persuade 1/3 of the angels to join him. These became the fallen angels. So since Lucifer had a 2-to-1 disadvantage, they had to retreat from heaven and go somewhere else. Now, God just created the universe as you know it today. And I can't say that there's not more to it, or there's not another dimensions, or whatever else. I don't know. I don't have that information. And it's not pertinent, really. But Lucifer came here and actually took the form of a serpent. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 3 through 5, but God did say, "You must not eat of the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden. You must not touch it, or you will die." Now, Lucifer told the woman, I might say serpent, but serpent's also another term or symbol for Lucifer. "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." See, Lucifer made a promise to Eve. At first, she would have immortality. She already had it. She already possessed it. Up to that point, no one died. No one. So, she didn't have anything to gain or lose there. I mean, she had nothing to gain, a lot to lose. Illumination was the second thing. Knowledge, wisdom, etc. Well, Adam walked with God. Adam had a question. He asked God. God would probably sit down with him and say, "Well, Adam, I'll tell you how it is. This is what it is." Just like a parent, like a parent and a child. And Lucifer was more like, and Americans would actually associate with this one better, a character in an old 1950s series called Leave It to Beaver. His name was Eddie Haskell. He was always starting stuff. Always trying to make things worse. But he would cower when approached by an adult. The third thing they were offered was becoming gods. Same thing Lucifer said. His throne would ascend above God's. Essentially becoming God. Actually reading through these points puts me in mind of a lot of occults running around right now. One's been around for a while. It's called the Mormon Church. They believe Lucifer and Isa Christ were brothers. That denies the deityship of Isa. Because Isa is God. And you've got God the Father, you have Isa, and you have the Holy Spirit. Three different entities. But they represent God. Now, you can get into different Protestant arguments over it, but it's still three. And I'm not going to debate that one. Find me on some other video and debate it, but not on this one. Now, what happened is all this set up something called the Great Deception. You see, Satan had his plan. Since he only had 1/3 of the angels, and he wanted to take the throne in heaven and put his throne into the Holy of Holies. 1/3 versus 2/3 equals defeat. Satan is not a fool. He's not an idiot. Don't ever think he is. He's a master of deception, but he's no idiot. So, he set in motion this plan. And in English, we call it the Great Deception. He set in motion his plan. And that's what I'm going to be covering, really, is the Great Deception. And why. And what his plan is. You see, in Matthew 24:24, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. If possible, even the elect. So deception is what they've been put in place. They've been working on it for, nearly 6,000 years. Man's time span has been shortened. And I'll cover that in the next section to why. So mankind doesn't have the longevity that existed before. Adam lived nearly 1,000 years. He was around when his sons became of age. And he was still there. They died. They were old men. And Adam probably still looked like a young man, relatively speaking. They didn't die until a long, long time. Now, sometime around this time period that I'm covering, which is Genesis 1-5, Enoch actually ascended into heaven. But Enoch had to prove that he wasn't corrupted, that he wasn't a Nephilim. Now, Nephilim in Hebrew, and I forgot the Hebrew word, I'll try to have it next time. Nephilim actually in Hebrew means the offspring of the fallen angels. The fallen angels, that's the name I can't remember, and then the Nephilim. What happened was, the fallen angels came to earth. However, I used the little space thing entry, and that's what that symbolized. Them coming to earth. Well, according to the scriptures and other places, it speaks of them taking women. The actual English translation to what that would really be today is capture and rape. Repeatedly. Now, there was a woman that lived out in California somewhere, I can't remember where. I want to say Sacramento, but I don't think that's right. Or it could have been San Francisco. Her name was Carla Morgan. And you can go get the video and look at it, whole 9 yards. And I'll give you an idea what it would have been like if they could assume full human form. And they could. Because as soon as they took human form, they had human appetites. But greatly enhanced. And I'll cover some of that later. So anyhow, this woman by the name of Carla Morgan was raped repeatedly, over and over and over. It is written, don't have proof, the family's actually hiding a lot of information. There used to be a page of Carla up on the internet to where she lived to about 51 years of age. She was raped throughout the time by this entity. I guess in the pursuit of having a child. And she died at 51 of cancer. She's not alive anymore, but she moved over into Texas somewhere. They wouldn't say where. They're trying to hide where she went and all that other stuff because they want her brought back up again. To them, it's sort of like a dirty secret. They don't want anybody to know. Because they would bring their kids into play, and they're adults now. And then they'll bring their children into play, and their grandchildren, and all this. And they don't want to go back through that. But that's the way it was. They would take the women by force and rape them to have children. And the children that were born were called the Nephilim. Now the Nephilim were known as the men of renown. The actual wordings in other places in the scripture indicate that they were as tall as the cedars of Lebanon. The cedars of Lebanon start off at 30 feet. They can go up to 150. Tall people. Very tall. And I'll try to add that stuff into the next section, but they have found skeletons of the Nephilim. They have found them. Now, other symbols I used when I was putting all this together, because I'm trying to get up to right before the flood. There is a lot of archaeological structures throughout the world. You have Stonehenge. You have the Great Pyramids in Egypt. You have pyramids in Mexico. You have the Nazca lines. You have Easter Island, I believe it is, with the giant faces facing which direction? East. And here's the thing. They're all on the ley lines. These are ley lines on the planet. The stone structures that were done were so precisioned that you can't even get a piece of paper to go in it. Perfect. Perfectly cut. They even have, what has been described as altar bowls. We really don't know the function. They have a hole going through it, approximately about a little over a foot to approximately, I don't know, what would it be in meters? About a third of a meter. And then it had a hole that would be, about 4 to 6 inches in diameter. Perfect. And the tools of the time, copper chisels and stone. You show me somebody with any skill that can cut stone to that degree of precision without precision equipment, I'll be impressed. And they claim the ancient Egyptians built this. And they didn't. They didn't build it. It was built before the flood. Because even if you look at the Sphinx, and you look at the enclosure around the Sphinx, you see water erosion. Now, taking in general consideration of general rain and all this and that, and then rotating it back to approximately 10,500 BC, and then have the Sphinx looking at a certain point, and you would have Leo coming across at a certain time and be directly in line with the Sphinx. If you look up from above at the pyramids, you have two pyramids in perfect alignment and one offset. Now, if you take the pyramids and the layout lines, and then you bring into effect the now, and you look up in the sky, it would line up with Orion and the Milky Way. Actually, I think there's other structures not yet discovered that are still there. The Egyptians had blocked all archaeological digs in certain key areas. There's even rumors that under the right paw, I think it's right, or is it left? It doesn't matter. Under one of the paws of the Sphinx, there is a hidden chest and a sort of antechamber. Under the paw of the Sphinx, that is the last remains of Atlantis. They did ground-penetrating radar, and there is a hollow spot under said paw, whichever one it is. But the Egyptians will not let them dig. There's a structure also near something that was constructed, I don't know what it really was, some type of religious site built by Seti the First. But there's another one they claim Seti the First built. Now Seti the First sits relatively ground level, right? This one sits 50 feet down, lower. And it's built the same way the pyramid's built. It's built the same way as the pyramids in Mexico are built. It's built the same way as other structures were built. Perfect alignment. If you can't get a piece of paper, go through it. So the proof and evidence on this seems to be a mathematical impossibility that Egyptians in the Old Kingdom would have this ability to manufacture these sites. And there's several of them. I just mentioned a handful. There's ones in China. There's ones over in, I think Turkey has one. There's one in India. Stonehenge. There's a couple sites in the U.S. Can't remember where. Yeah. And I got more. But yes. So, think about it. I'm sitting there, and I'm an ancient Egyptian. Now, this is a knife. I'm not threatening anybody. Let's say this is my stone chisel, right? And I am sitting there working on a rock with a chisel made of copper, trying to cut a precision cut into stone. Not possible. Let's bring into the possibility of lifting a 150-ton structure and move it. Again, not possible. They can't do that now. If someone asked a builder, gave them all the money they needed, all the equipment, everything else, and asked them to duplicate all three Great Pyramids within 100 years, they can't do it, even with today's technology. It's impossible. Can't be done. The Nephilim, as I said, were known as the men of renown. More is to come later. I don't want this video to run long. Wish you guys a good day, except for the two I'm thinking of. And for Sarai, Pika Agam Tich. Pika Agam Tich. the rest of you guys, shalom. Debates below. Feel free. Anything on this subject matter here on this video is open grounds. Don't debate God with me. Skip that one. Because I can't prove his existence. And you can't disprove it. So it's just a circular argument. But, you know, the Nephilim, the threat is coming. False prophets, false messiahs, great wonders and signs to deceive people. Giants that lived before, fostered by, if you're an atheist, E.T. Those are free. Feel free. Disagree, add to, confront, whatever. It's a discussion. It's not sit here to say you have to believe what I believe. It's a discussion. It's not a sledgehammer. Because this is discussion. This has nothing to do with faith. Nothing to do with faith at all. It's not spiritual. To me, this is history. It's history I've known for a very long time. Well, I wish you guys a good day. Shalom.